Hello, everyone. Welcome to season two, episode one of A Conversation About. Today, we have Manuel Cervantes joining us again for another conversation. This time, we're going to be talking about some of the elements of success. This conversation started over text. Manuel and I, we're talking about, what makes up success. What do we think success is? And we just want to start with like a broad take on success and then kind of dive into some things. So, Manny, I know you have a definition for us. Would you like to introduce that?
So the Oxford definition of success is the accomplishment of an aim or purpose. The question is, what is that aim or purpose? It's different for everyone. And how do you know you actually achieve that aim or purpose? What route do you take? How can you get your hands on it?
So success is very individualistic. Wow, that was a hard word. Because I mean, like you said, like you can take different routes. I think there's this broad picture of like what success is. Like there's this broad societal picture of like, okay, in order to be successful in life, you need to do this, and this, and then you'll be successful. But I mean, if you take it at like face value, if you take the dictionary definition, we are pretty successful people in everyday life. Like if you set a goal, okay, today I'm gonna make it through work, set a goal. Success doesn't necessarily have to be like this big accomplishment. Sometimes I think personally it's very like step by step, like very small integral steps that you take that like overall show success. But I mean, it was like success every bit of the way, if that makes sense.
So for me, I agree. There's different types of levels of success, I guess. But more than anything, there's different groups that expect a type of success. So you mentioned society, that's one. Individual and would be another. Family, that could be another. The government, political, things like that. I mean, that would kind of go into society, but I think that there comes a time where you have to choose what type of success is more important than you. Not, you don't have to shoot for the stars and, go all out and say, well, I want to become an astronaut and like just, spend your whole life just like trying to reach that one big success level, just that one goal. I'm not saying don't have dreams. My biggest thing is have dreams, dream bigger dreams, and keep dreaming more dreams, set your goals, but you have to go through the levels. So like you mentioned Google before, it's like, oh, I'm going to work today. My goal is to go to work. Once I get there, I succeed, I'm at work. Okay, cool. That's a small stepping stone to success, right? Now, we have to figure out what really matters to people or what really matters to us, because I'm not going to say your success is not my success or it doesn't matter, it's irrelevant. No, I'm just saying like we have to think for ourselves and say, what's my success? What do I want? Not what my parents, not what my brother wants, not what my grandma wants, not what my dog wants. So I love my dog, but that's not the point. It's what do I want for my life? I mean, Google, what's the point? What's the goal of this podcast? What's the point of a conversation about? What do you want to achieve with this podcast? Well, if you reach your goal, does that mean you were successful? And kind of going back, did you accomplish your aim or purpose? What was it? So you tell me now, like, what do you think your aim and purpose is when it comes down to having a conversation about? So I don't think you were expecting that, but I am flipping it back to you to see, what you think, what you're taking, what your goals, aspirations, and how you think you'll succeed.
I was not expecting that. I appreciate that question, actually. So there's this common theme, this saying I like to say a lot to my friends, especially when we're like feeling overwhelmed with life. It's how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time, And I think there's a lot of like external pressures to set these like really big, sometimes unrealistic goals that are just like really, really difficult to attain. if like all you're doing is trying to eat the elephant in one bite, right? So, and like you said, that's not to discredit anybody. Like you want to encourage people to have big dreams and do really big, important things for them in life, right? Not just because society tells you that this is important. And I'm not avoiding the question. I will weave this into it. Um, but you don't want to discredit, like I was saying, you don't want to discredit people's dreams, and you want to encourage them to do that. But you also want them to like set like a smart goal, something that's, you know, achievable, in a timely fashion that can actually get done, you know, and it's measurable. And measurable is quite objective, but there's this, and it could very well be in terms of measurable, it could very well be that at the end of the path, of the end of the journey into achieving that goal, or like going through with that goal, you find out that maybe you weren't successful. You find out that maybe the goal you were like pursuing wasn't exactly what you wanted it to be. You know, your perspective could change along the way. So like success is quite tricky. Now, as far as like the podcast and stuff, well, I think the initial goal, and like the indicator of success for me, is how much I can bring forth into existence. That's kind of broad, but here's why. So I am constantly thinking of things all day. I'm constantly thinking about new ideas, or like rethinking old ideas. You know, I'm constantly thinking about how the world works, how politics work, how government works. I love thinking about philosophy. I don't always have a space to bring those thoughts into fruition. And I have found through a couple of these podcasts, through all of these podcasts, that as soon as I start talking, like parts of my brain shut off and other parts just go, you know, like all those thoughts I've been thinking about all day, just kind of flow out. There's no barrier saying, no, don't say that, that's stupid, you know. And sometimes I surprise myself, you know, I say, oh wow, I said that. Like I go back and listen to some podcasts, I'm like, yeah, you know what, that was a, you know, it was a pretty good comment. And same thing, like I was listening to one we did earlier, about personas and faces with Rudy as well. And I was like listening back to it, I'm like, wow, we said some really cool things. Like you guys should watch that. And so I think that was like the goal of the podcast, just to provide a space, to where I can, you know, release my thoughts, you know, and think about things. And then like the other side of that is to like have friends on that can also do the exact same thing, and then bounce back and forth ideas. So ultimately we become better people, or like at least question the world in a different way. And so I would, and I know I'm rambling now, um, but my indicator of success is, do I feel like I was able to express myself in some way, shape, or form during the podcast? And if I was, then cool, I was successful with the podcast. It doesn't matter how many views the video got, you know, how many likes, how many people shared it. Like none of that really, really matters to me. I mean, I would love to like blow up, you know, and have more people involved with it and everything. But that's like not the goal, you know, like the main goal and the main like, you know, measure of success for me is going to be, was I able to express myself? Did I see that my friends were able to express themselves? Wow, I went on for a while.
So let me ask this question, I guess, to go on. So it's a very, I guess, deep question. But what do you think your purpose, your aim in this life is? Like, what do you want?
Ooh.
Like, what is your ultimate goal? Like, if you can, like, what, I guess, because maybe the dream that you had as a little kid maybe isn't what it is now. Let's just say you want to be like a astronaut, or I don't know. I mean, el presidente. You know, like I'm not saying. You know, like what was your biggest aspiration as a little kid? Just hit me with it. Just say like this is what it was.
As a kid or now?
Well, as a kid, and then I'll go on to like what it is now, I guess. So think about that. But
Gosh, you know, I know you mentioned astronaut, but as a kid, I really, really wanted to be an astronaut. Space
really,
has always fascinated me. I was telling you, dude, like my coasters are space themed. The drink I'm drinking right now is a space themed energy drink. Like the posters on my wall are like mainly space themed in some way, shape, or form. So like space is something I really like. So as a kid, I really, really wanted to be an astronaut. Um,
and so what about now? What do you think your purpose or your aim is now? Like what do you want to accomplish?
so interestingly, and I'm gonna flip this right back on you,
Oh,
but
yeah, I know.
but I've had an interesting change in perspectives this last maybe year, where if you notice, what I said is what I want to be as an astronaut. And that's like an occupation, you know? So like my goal as a kid was to have some kind of ideal job. As I'm growing up and, learning more about the world, it's not what I want to be when I grow up, or it's who I want to be when I grow up. And so that's, if I still don't know. I mean, I want to be the best possible version of myself. And I've said that a couple of times in different podcasts. But if I can leave this earth knowing that I did good in at least one person's life, then it will all be worth it. And that's the kind of person I want to be ultimately at this stage of my life. That's the person I think I want to be. If I helped somebody in some way, shape, or form, then that's what I want to do.
Well, I was waiting for you to flip it right back at me, but I guess I'll just go.
No. I mean, I was gonna give you a second to like say anything about that, and of course that flips right back on. You can't throw me a very deep philosophical question about that and then expect me to be the one that answers it without your take on it.
Yeah, no, I like how you said it's not what I want to be, because that's more of an occupation, but who I want to be. And I mean, in these 23 years of my existence, I've learned a lot of things. I went to college, had that experience, grew up. I mean, life changes, and as we mature, obviously as we're kids going through elementary, middle school, high school, college, like we learn a lot and we transition, and like there's different events that happen in our life that really change us and really mature us. And I'm coming from a standpoint where like, yeah, I mean, I was a goof, like I wasn't bad, like I was mature enough to understand a lot of things, but immature when I would be with friends and just having fun. And a lot of people can attest to that. Anyone who gets to watch this podcast later down the road, I'm pretty sure you're going to send me a text and say, yeah, I mean, what are you talking about? You're not mature. I'm pretty mature. I think so. I've been told.
I think so.
Dang, this lighting's really like killing me. But yeah, I mean, a lot's changed. It really comes down to responsibility too. And so, I mean, I think it's a learning lesson. But I guess flipping it back to me as to what I want to accomplish. I mean, obviously I don't have a podcast like you. But it's always great to be on here and be able to explore different conversations and be able to express my thoughts and ideas. I used to hate philosophy and things like that. And well, I hated reading books, and now I have one, you can't see it, but 1, 2, and 3 right in front of me, because I read now. And it's just, you pick up habits and you leave bad habits. I'm not saying all habits are bad, but you just leave habits that don't benefit you. And so I guess, I mean, I know I'm kind of like going off about this, but my aim or purpose, what I want to accomplish, is pretty much similar to what you said, but not necessarily just help one person. It sounds, I don't even know what word I want to use for this. It's not that I want to be the center of attention or want everyone to look at me, whatever. But I've had many conversations. Like the other day, one of my good friends, Enrique, and I were having a conversation, and I remember going back years back, he would always tell me like, people actually like look up to you. And I was like, no one looks up to me. Like, who would want to look up to me? Like, why? And then the more I thought about it, I mean, I'm not saying everyone did. I'm not saying everyone liked me. I'm not saying I was like popular. Like I never thought I was. But your actions leave an imprint. Right? I said that right? I think so. I don't care. You just leave a trace of yourself with every person that you touch and you're kind to. And I started studying that, and it makes me feel good, because in a world where everything's driven by money, by society, by you got to do this, you got to do that. If not, you're not worth it. Or if you're not working your full-time job, like customs, beliefs, culture, like if you're not following these like rules, you're not succeeding. And I don't think that's what success is. To me, success is being able to live a life where you can help others. One of the best books I've read in the last few years, and I say years, but really the last few months, has been a book that really taught me that the way to succeed is to give. You can't be successful in life if you're not giving. And in a world where dog eats dog is very prevalent, I used to never understand that term, dog eat dog. What does that mean? Like, oh, me and Ugo have two podcasts. We're fighting to be the best one. No, like we have two podcasts. We're going to collaborate and make it known that, like we have two podcasts and we're two great podcasts that, people should listen to both podcasts, not just, hey, mine's better. Kick this guy in the trash can and just call it a day. So it's, to answer your question, ultimately my aim or purpose is to be a better brother, be a better son, grandson, be there for my family, be there for my friends, be there for the people around me. Association is very, like, who you associate with determines who you are. So being able to, associate with good people so I can then pass that down to other people and pretty much touch hearts. I've had a lot of experiences in literally the last few weeks, and it's changed my mindset a lot. And it comes down to mental strength and heart. If you don't have heart, you're going to be miserable in this world. And I think a lot of times people get carried away with irrelevant things that I'm not saying are unimportant. They're important to them, but they're unimportant to me. And I don't know, I think that's kind of powerful because, like I said, everyone's driven by different things, by different means. And I mean, not everyone has the same goals, plans in life. And it's okay. I mean, it's just because you don't agree with something doesn't mean you're going to have to disagree with them and tell them they're wrong. Just be kind. And yeah, that's what I want to accomplish. I just want to be kind, be a good person, and help others. And that was not my goal before. Like you mentioned before, I was going for occupations, and that's not the ultimate goal. Because I'm probably gonna quote this, but I mean, once you die, the money's in the grave. It doesn't go anywhere else. You leave, and it's just there.
So there's a lot to unpack right there, like based off what I said and based off what you said. So there seems to be this notion, and I've mentioned it before, I don't know if in a podcast or like, I know I mentioned this a lot to my friends. There seems to be this like societal pressure that like, if you're not working overtime, if you're not starting a new business, if you're not an entrepreneur, if you're not going to college, if you're not double majoring, if you're not starting a family, if you're not buying a house, if you're not doing all these things in your 20s, then you're already losing at life. And it's like, hold on a minute. Everyone has different goals, and those might not be, aligning with yours. Now, I think what I take away from both of our answers is that we want to have some kind of influence. So like, I know I mentioned like, if I could have at least helped one person, that, that's part of my purpose, right? And like, obviously I want to dream big. I want to help as many friggin' people as I possibly can, in the numerous amount of ways. Like you mentioned, like to some people you could be a mentor, friends come to you for help, much in the same sense that some of my friends do that with me, right? So that's part of it, like that influence, that, like you said, heart to heart connection with people. Like ultimately that's the goal. And I want to quote a great poet, and something he was saying off script. XXX Tentacion once said, I at least want to know that the kids perceive my message and were able to make something of themselves and able to take my message and use it to turn it into something positive. I mean, that's it. If someone can be influenced to do something positive with what I'm saying, with my ideas, and that's ultimately what I envision success to be. Like that's ultimately what my goal is. Now, like kind of tying it back to success in a way, is there's multiple steps along the way. Like success for me right now is getting through my last semester so I can graduate with my bachelor's, right? And we're struggling out here, but that's part of the pathway. That's part of the journey that will eventually lead into like the big things I want to do. Sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, I definitely agree. I don't know. There's a lot of things going through my head at the moment. I mean, it just kind of like just blew up like in my head and just started, talking about all this. But I think when it comes down to goals, you can't create imaginary constraints. And let's say, I guess I'll just quote it from the book. And it's one of the books that really inspired me to start reading and really opened my eyes and ears and brain and everything to pretty much go into learning more about life. And it's Matthew McConaughey's Green Lights book. I'm not whatsoever sponsored or nothing, or I don't know what else you have to say,
but we could be. I'm
pretty sure we quoted it before, but he pretty much just says, don't create imaginary constraints. Like don't worry about a leading role, a blue ribbon, a winning score, a great idea, the love of our life, euphoric bliss. Who are we to think we don't deserve these fortunes when they are in our grasp? Who are we to think that we haven't earned them? So when you think about this, a lot of people think that they don't deserve a goal. I mean, they don't deserve a dream. They don't deserve success. Why? Why is it? Just because you didn't walk a lady across the street, or just because you saw a dog or a cat, stray dog and cat, and you didn't give them food, and does that mean you don't deserve it? Or even if you did something worse, I'm not saying like morally wrong, but let's just say you did something a little bit more severe than just not giving a dog food. Like, why do you think you don't deserve success? Like, we pretty much have to reach beyond our grasp and have immortal finish lines, because we just can't, like I mentioned before, dream bigger dreams. Like, we can't really sit down and say, yeah, there's a roof over our head, we can't go over that. A roof is a man-made thing. You can tear that roof apart. You can tear it up and just explode and go to space like Elon Musk, and who was going to be in there just kind of like, that's
tagging along for the ride.
Tagging along for the ride. So I know we ramble a lot. I know a lot of people text me on that like previous episode or the one that I did. They're like, hey, y'all don't stay on task. I was like, hey, you know who I'm talking about.
What conversation have you ever had in your life that stays on task the whole time? That's all I gotta ask.
We're just having
fun. But even professionals, like it's so like
Jimmy Fallon.
No, but let's go. So let's tie this in. Let's tie this in with what you were saying about green lights, which I have right here. I just haven't finished reading it. I only got a couple of pages in. But so we're talking about constraints, right? So if we're going to sit here and say, okay, we can't do a podcast because we can't stay on topic, that's a mental constraint. That is a constraint. Like, okay, what's stopping you? Well, we get off topic and, it's like, hold on, wait a minute. It doesn't matter as long as you're doing it. And that happened to be, and stop me if I'm like now just ranting, but it happens to be that for a long time, I wanted to do this podcast, but there was way too many mental constraints. Is anybody actually going to watch it? Is it going to be difficult to get my friends and get different people to come on? How would I even do it? Like, there's so many like mental constraints to achieving this goal that I just kept pushing it off. Like, oh, I don't deserve a podcast. I don't deserve to be doing, like you said, like who gets to determine what you deserve? And it's like, is it necessarily what you deserve or what you're making of life? So it's like, if let's take this for example, like, oh, I don't deserve a podcast. Well, if you look at it that way, I mean, you could justify for or against that claim with like many different examples, but a different way to say it is, I'm going to create a podcast. So that way it has less to do with deserving and more of how much work you're going to put into it. Because then once you like make the podcast become successful, then you can say, then that question of deserving doesn't really matter because it's something you created. That like takes away some of the societal pressures. And if that's like irrelevant, let me know. But
so like changing keywords into saying that you will instead of like, I could or I might or things like that. Yeah, I got
Yeah,
you.
because it's all about how you frame a message. And that's communications 101. How you encode and decode messages is like extremely important. And like the channels and the ways you do it are extremely important. So if you're encoding messages to yourself saying, I can't do this, I don't deserve this, then you start creating some kind of mental, idea of what you can and cannot do when you really can do anything you like. I know this is really corny, but you can like actually do anything you set your mind to if you like actually dedicate yourself to it. So yeah, a lot of the times it's these key words, these key phrases that you have to like change that phrasing for. And it's really hard to do because like society is always, and I know I keep mentioning this, but like society just like pressures you into this idea. And it's like, how do you prosper and grow as yourself in navigating through this world, and like creating an identity for yourself so you can, with that identity, define what success means to you, not what society tells you, and like then define a pathway to it, define goals along the way, define how you're going to measure it, and know that things aren't going to go according to plan because that's how life is.
And I was about to ask you a question, but I know if I do, it's gonna be like a 3 hour conversation. So I'll just ask this one.
No, no, go ahead.
I'll ask this one instead. Hold on. Well, I'll mention this instead.
Okay.
Um, let's see. The most valuable gift you have to offer is yourself. What do you think about that statement right there?
I mean, it's true because when you think of a gift, you think of something very materialistic, but everyone is unique and everyone is special, regardless of what anybody says. Regardless of what anybody says, regardless of what you did in some way, shape, or form, or what you have done or what you will do, everyone in some way, shape, or form is unique and special. So I mean, I agree that like the greatest gifts you could give is yourself because like there's so much in here, and not like just personally me, but like for everyone, there's so much in there that like if given the opportunity, I think we could all come together and like really brainstorm on some really cool things and like really advance in society if we were able to be ourselves without these external pressures on us. So yeah, I think so. I think a lot of people get caught up on like, how can I contribute to society in a monetary way or some kind of materialistic way, but it's like just providing your outlook and perspective and being open to other people's perspectives and being moldable is going to be one of the greatest things you can provide for this world. At least I think so.
So one of the like another quote I had read is pretty much your true worth is determined by how much more you give in value than you take in payment. So what I think about that necessarily is we often get caught in wanting something in return and expecting something in return. And that's not necessarily what we should want or expect. It's kind of what I said before, like, and if we're talking about success, it's more than anything. Like for me, being successful is giving my time to people, giving my opinion, giving my my soul to someone else that is willing to accept it and drive and do the same thing, like building relationships with people, with friends. Like I never realized how important it was. Like we all grew up with each other. There's about 15 of us, I think. I don't know if there's a lot
Yeah.
that we still keep in touch. And like when you think about all the things we did, like yeah, some of us may not be as close. We're all still close. Some of them started their families and everything. But I think that to me, I find more value in being able to give myself my time to my friends, because it's to me, it's just I know they deserve it, but I'm never going to expect anything back. I'm never going to say like, hey Ugo, like shoot, I don't know, like you want to call, or like let's say you want to call every other day to talk about something going on in your life. Like I'm not going to expect you to like do the same thing, like, hey, like do you need something from me? Do you want me to, like no, like I'm not gonna expect that. Like to me, my values, like the value I find is just being able to listen and give to you. That's really what it is for me. I mean, and going back to, I mean, it also goes into like the greatest gift I have to give is myself, and that's why I mentioned both of them like back to back. Now, I'm not saying to shut yourself off and say, no, don't give anything in return. I guess let's put it this way. I know sometimes people working in like food or retail, depending on your customer service, someone may want to give you a tip, right? Um, I'm not saying no, don't do it. I mean, obviously, everyone's gonna want a tip at some point because if you've worked in retail food, you know how hard it is. And um, I was fortunate enough to experience retail, and never again will I work there. I don't want to. Um, but you have to think about staying open to receiving. Lately, I've at work, I work in an office and I get people coming in all the time. I see about maybe 20 people a day. I don't know. And I've had the most genuine conversations with people. Sometimes I have a book out, they say, oh, what's that book about? And we talk about it. Oh, I think I've read something similar. Um, People start connecting with me. They start like, yesterday someone said, hey, add me on LinkedIn. Like we can add value to each other. You're great to talk to. Or like, hey, keep my number. Or hey, I have like a chicken, like a rotisserie chicken post, like stand down the road. Call me if you ever need anything. Like, and all I did was be nice to these people. That's literally what it was. I was nice. I asked about their day. I took care of them, took care of their needs. They walked out. I haven't seen them again, but I know they left with a part of me, like me being nice to them. And maybe now, like maybe that guy that works at selling that chicken at that stand, maybe that he started passing some of that kindness onto someone else. And so I kind of went off topic there, but the point of that is I was willing to accept and say, yeah, like I'll receive this gift from you. Not saying, hey, you need to give me something back. I said, I'm willing to receive something back from you. The same thing as Hugo, like we grew up together. Like I gave you my time, I gave you my friendship, my kindness, and now you're able to give me this opportunity, and I'm open to receiving and willing to receive this opportunity to talk about our friendship, conversations that we want to have, things like that. Um, Along with, let's just say, when I was working retail, some old lady, I helped her put a 50-pound bag of dog feed into her the back of her car, and she's like, "Well, here's $2." I was like, "No, no, no, no." She's like, "Here, take it." I was like, I mean, if you really want to, then yes, I humbly accept. But I mean, I'm not saying $2 is nothing. I'm just saying like, I'll take whatever you want to give me because, why? Who am I to say no to you? Like, who? I'm not on this pedestal saying no, no, no. Like, like no, that's not what I'm going to. It's just be willing to receive after you give. And I think that's going to be one of the biggest factors into succeeding in life and whatever your goal is in succeeding in blah, 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 blah. Like, it's one of the most important things that I've learned. And hopefully I keep applying it to keep hitting my goals daily, weekly, monthly, yearly, and for the rest of my life.
So because we at one point worked for the same company, but not in the same location, I had a similar instance with somebody where I was loading another 50-pound bag of dog food, right? And all they had to give me, this person was poor. I've been there. My family's been there. You can kind of recognize some of the signs. This person was poor. And they still wanted to tip me. And I'm like, no, I mean, I get paid to do this. Like, you don't have to give me anything. But like, it was a thought that counts. And they gave me 50 cents, 2 quarters, right? And so like a lot of people would say, oh, those 2 quarters are nothing. But like, honestly, for me, that meant so much more than anybody could think about because I've been tipped $100, $50, and people in the service industry have been, tipped hundreds of dollars. But like for me, that moment right there meant a lot to me because it's the thought that counts. Now, kind of like thinking back to that, what was the second quote you said from the book? I kind of wanted to touch on something it said. It was not the one about giving, like
Or receiving.
yeah, the one about giving and receiving.
The key to effective giving is to stay open to receiving.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I mean, I agree because so when we think about karma, and this is a problem I have with karma. I don't necessarily believe in karma, but I don't not believe in karma. But My problem is that if you're doing things to get good karma, it's because you're expecting things in return, right? So I would much rather people, be good for the purpose of being good and then learn when to accept other people's goodness, other people's kindness, than trying to like rack up some karma points so that when you do something bad or when something happens, you're like, oh yeah, I deserved it because I did all these good things, right? So that's kind of my take on that. At the same time, maybe giving isn't necessarily a part of your goal or a part of like your journey to success, and that's okay too, right? So like there's this also, and I'm pushing back on this quote a little bit, because you don't have to give, and especially not to be successful in life. Like I personally love giving, whether it's sharing ideas, thoughts, materialistic gifts, whatever it be. I like sharing myself with the world. And wow, that sounds very promiscuous now that I say it, but but anyways, that's what I'd like to do. But I also won't like bag or rag on somebody that doesn't like giving, if that makes sense. Like it's another one of these things like, oh, you have to always be sharing kindness. Oh, you have to always be doing good. And like you said, I love to, because they leave with a little bit of me that then can be, like you mentioned, shared with other people. And it's like, like you never know what like a compliment could do to someone who's having a really bad day. Like you never know what kind of like little things you do in your life, a hello, a good morning, opening the door for someone. You never know how that could like change somebody's life. And you never know how, if you open the door for somebody, then they open the door for somebody else, and like it's a chain reaction that you started. I would venture to say that like if you're doing something out of the kindness of your heart, that's the best way to go. Not to do something so that later on you can like say, well, I've been doing good things, so I deserve this, or wow, because that then leads you to think, wow, I've been doing these good things and I haven't like gotten anything back. And then you start getting like this negative perception of things. It's like, do things out of the kindness of your heart if that's what you want to do. But if you don't want to give, that's cool too. If
Yeah,
that
I
makes
mean,
sense.
the biggest thing is like it's a mindset, and it's who you want to be. It's not who we tell you to be. It's not whoever someone else tells you to be. It's you choose to be who you are. And I mean, I chose to be who I am. Ugo chooses to be who he is. And like, I mean, as you mentioned, like you don't have to do whatever we're telling you. This is just a conversation we're having as friends, and we just want to share it. And maybe someone can ask us questions later down the road, but no judging, please. And I keep saying
We
for
all
some
make our
reason.
mistakes. Yeah, we
Yeah.
all make our mistakes.
And yeah, I mean, it is a mindset. I mean, there was a time where I stopped being nice. I mean, I was nice, always was pretty nice. I think there were some moments where I probably wasn't, but it's because I learned that people like to walk over you, and that's not fine. And I realized that that was not fine. But then just recently, like me, just this is my mindset. I said, that's fine. You want to walk over me? I'll still be nice to you. It's okay. I mean, now I know how to not get walked over. I used to be a floor mat. Fine, not fine, but fine. Now I'm at a different level where I know that I'm fine being myself. Okay. You know, I used to
Yeah,
be, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but like that's exactly what I was thinking as you were saying it. It's like, yeah, we've been stepped on, and I mean we can think of numerous instances when we have, right? And like one of the greatest satisfactions is being on another level. And that's not saying, oh, I'm better than you because I'm this, but like in your own like physical state, you're on a different level where that does not bother you the same, where you've like learned to recognize when people are doing bad things to you or walking over you and they're trying to take advantage of you. And you say, huh, interesting. I see what's going on. I know what to do to navigate through this. And I'm just not going to let this happen, but it's not going to ruin my day. It's not going to stop me from being kind. And that's like another level up here that like that's the goal of this podcast, to get people to think about these things, like not so you can take what we say and like implement it into your life directly, but so you can actually think about this, like what is success to me, if you whoever's listening or watching at home, right? It's like I want you to actually think about like, okay, are my goals or is my idea of success something that society has manufactured and embedded in me, or is it something that genuinely comes from me? And like, what's my relationship with that? I didn't mean to cut you off, but go ahead.
No, you're good. And yeah, I mean, what I was gonna mention before, like everyone is. I guess that doesn't even really matter what I was gonna say. Never mind. But I guess the point of this.
Sorry.
No, it was irrelevant anyways. I was just gonna ramble. But the point of this
No.
podcast, this conversation, it's not for us to just talk about what's on our head. It's to express an idea, what's in our heart, and I think that's what really matters. And so, I mean, a lot of our friends want to be or talk about this conversation. I know we had a few pending ones. We were going to talk about. Well, I mean, I don't want to have a spoiler, but we are going to talk about a movie. At some point, we just all got busy with everything, and we weren't able to. That's fine. This is really to share an idea. We don't have an overall theme for every episode. I say we, but really Ugo. It's not like we have a theme and a schedule and like a format that we have to follow. It's an idea that we just want to talk about. Yes, we might talk about something at the beginning and then we might ramble and then talk about it at the end. That's fine. The point is, if you want to have a conversation, just hit up Ugo, talk to him, say, hey, I'm interested. We've had some great people on here, some great friends, some people I don't know that, I still value their conversation. And let me personally leave with this. One of my professors, one of my great mentors always told me to always lend an ear, always be willing to have a conversation, always sit down and speak to that person. Even if you're not interested, at least give the time of day, because even if you don't think you gain anything from it, that's wrong. You may not have had the outcome of that meeting or talk that you were expecting, but you did learn something from that opportunity. And that's something I've been living by, because for every negative outcome, you can turn it into a positive opportunity. And that's something that's helped me a lot. And that's why I think I've slowly been gaining stability and success in my life, because I've been following by that. And I think I created that. I don't think I heard it anywhere. I think I created that, the positive, the negative outcome turns into positive opportunity. And I've told it to a few friends too. So I'll just leave you with that. And I think that'll end what I have to say about this overall conversation and idea. So I'll leave it to you, Ugo. If you have any last remarks, any other messages you want to give everyone.
So since you mentioned a quote from your professor, I'll mention one from one of mine as well, because it goes hand in hand with what you were saying. So my professor mentioned how some of the best things that have come to this world are through communication. And some of the worst things that have happened in this world are a result of communication. Like, communication is everything, right? Like, it's how we talk to each other, how we perceive each other, the body motions, it's everything, right? So like you mentioned, you may think that listening to this nasty story that your friend is telling you is so boring and you just don't want to listen to it. You have no idea the impact you are having just by listening to somebody. We want to be heard. We want to be understood. We want to have dignity and stuff. And that's dignity and stuff, as if there was, but anyways, right. We want to have these things so that we can, function and be able to have a pathway to success. And it's like, you have no idea the kind of impact you could have on somebody's life just by listening to them and just by communicating with them. And I mean, that's again, like I keep saying, I didn't think that this conversation was going to go this way, but that's like, ultimately, that's the goal of the podcast. Like you said, I have had a bunch of friends, some that you don't know, on this podcast. And like, one, we talked about anime. Another one, we talked about music. It's like, it goes anywhere because it's about expressing what we have in here and trying to do something to, get our thoughts, our feelings out there so that we can grow as a person and perhaps, spark conversations with other people. So, I mean, I really appreciate you coming on, and I really appreciate that we're able to, like you said, not have like this like set schedule. Oh, we have to record on Sunday at 3:30 because if we don't, everything goes to chaos. So I really appreciate that flexibility from everyone that I've had on this podcast. and the flexibility to have like different conversations and letting this, like you were mentioning earlier, like people were saying, oh, you guys go off topic. It's the point of the conversation. I didn't mean to rant. I did mean to rant, but I didn't mean to sound mean if I did when I ranted that. But I mean, that's the point of every conversation. They go all over the place. And that's the goal of this podcast. If we start constraining ourselves, like you were mentioning earlier, if we start constraining ourselves to this model, you have to do it this way, and this way on this time. If not, it's not successful. Then you're like setting yourself up for success. The situation dictates how you're going to act, and I mean, it dictates everything. The situation dictates the mood, it dictates everything. So just kind of take life, again, one bite at a time. That's how you eat the elephant. That's how you achieve your goals, your personal goals. And sure, if you have personal goals, I know I'm ranting a little bit, but if you have personal goals that are like also like, buying a house, starting a family, these kind of things that are more like stereotypical, that's okay too, as long as they personally make you feel whole. That's what kind of matters. And if I could leave you with anything, it's going to be that: do things that try to make you feel whole and are to your own idea and perspective of what success is. This has been a conversation about that started about talking about success and then ended up about personal goals and trying to find out who you are. Manny, thank you for coming on. As always, you are welcome any day of the week. I appreciate your time.